Do you want to do the intro or should I? That's a great question.
Uh, well, it doesn't really matter.
Ah, fuck it. You might as well do it.
Okay, so we've started.
Well, we haven't technically. Well, yeah, yes, we have to start recording. It's just you just do the intro and edit this part out, innit?
Okay, well, I guess we might as well get to it. So, welcome to the Freethinkers podcast. This is a philosophical podcast which we have been doing for some weeks now. We had a bit of a break due to different technological issues, but now we're back at it. And of course, my name is Hugo, and I am, of course, joined by the very philosophical and prestigious gentleman himself.
Yes, well, hello there. My name is Alan. I think you're giving us a little bit too much credit, though, saying that we are philosophical. I think we've very recently gone a lot into politics.
Yeah, perhaps.
Yeah, and I think it's time we change that, right?
Yeah.
I think it's time we start doing things that are more towards the philosophical side. And what better way to do this than a game, right? A game
Mm,
which you at home could follow along. Um, you we will play the game Would You Rather, very famous for being a drinking game usually. Um, However, today we will apply that in philosophy and other stuff as well, right? Um, but first things first, Hugo, my friend, what would you like to discuss today before we get into this game?
well, I guess the only thing that I really want to take, or well, to discuss just before we begin is about well, our donation or our fundraising, I guess, because we
Yeah.
still technically have that going. I am thinking of putting up some links on this episode as well, and there is also links to Kvinnojouren on the previous video, which we are supporting at the moment. And it would be really appreciative if you don't have to send any money if you don't have to, but you
Any
can,
amounts appreciated.
yeah.
And for those who don't know, Kvinnojouren is it government funded? I don't think so. I think it's a private company. It's a private company which supports single mothers and other women who have been in abusive relationships, who maybe have suffered from stuff like toxic relationships or statutory rape or whatever it may be, and are getting help with that in life. And they're a great foundation, and we here at Freethinkers love to support them.
Yes. Uh, and of course, I mean, even just clicking the link down below, checking out their website is also appreciated. Just that to bring awareness and to show, of course, the support means a lot.
Yeah, well, time to get in, I suppose. Time to get stuck in. Our first question then, in this extreme would you rather, is would you rather have real political power but be relatively poor, be ridiculously rich, and have no political power?
uh, well then, yeah, that's an interesting question. Uh, I remember someone saying like, those who are poor aspire to be rich, and those who are rich aspire to be poor in a way. Not in a sense that rich people want to be poor, but they, for example, they are less inclined to accept like money from other people and stuff. I
Yeah.
don't know. Maybe it's just me talking. But um, it's so interesting because we talked, or at least I and my history teacher talked a bit about this today. Because we were discussing the rule of Castro. Now we're getting political, I know, but
Okay. I
uh,
mean, we say never gonna, but in reality, this is just as political
yeah,
as it is
but it's going into
physical.
the philosophical because we talked about how basically when you get power, when you get large amounts of power, you basically kind of go a bit nuts because you Well, I don't know. It's just a common thing with people
But
that.
perhaps to counteract that point, isn't it also most rich people are also a bit insane?
Mm,
Like ridiculously rich as well. It's like you look at someone like Elon Musk or uh,
Andrew
fucking
Tate.
I don't think he's ridiculously rich, but
Well,
I'm thinking like this mega billionaire. I'm thinking that you can't spend this amount of money in a lifetime.
he's an
Okay.
interesting personality.
Yeah, I feel okay, but back to the main question is like someone who has so would you like because I'm thinking like if you have so much money to the point where it doesn't have any value, right?
Mm,
And you have no political power, like you're basically guaranteed safety for life, right? Like you can do anything you want and have no worries. And I think political power in itself brings some worries. But also, I feel like if you're rich, it's very easy for you to have political power. But also, if you have political power, it's also very easy to be rich.
mm, true. Well, I guess it's a lose-lose situation. I don't know. But also I do think that um, it's a hard question because I think that if you have like a strong will and a very uncorruptive mind, you can. I mean, I would definitely choose either one. Um, I mean, since I talked about Castro, I mean, yeah, he probably was pretty rich, but he was also very strong-willed, so he never
Mm.
technically gave in to the power-hungry status. But I don't know. Personally, I would rather be rich than have political power because I don't really know what I'm supposed to do with it. Because I'm not like a very political person. So um, I mean, wealth is power in our modern society. At least that's how I see it.
Yeah, I think the only reason why I'm gonna choose being rich with no political power, or sorry, ridiculously rich without having no political power, is a I don't have to work a single day in my life. I don't have to do anything else in my life, right?
Mm,
Because um, I have the financial security of doing whatever I want and having having a safety net, a 100% secure safety net. And I think not having any political power would also be amazing because it doesn't bring the stress of also having political power. I feel like it's sort of I think it's more worth it as like a lifestyle to be rich with no political power. I feel
mm,
like it's much more maintainable lifestyle, which is why I would personally go for that.
mm, yeah. So we're in agreement.
Indeed we are. Indeed we are. I guess the next one then, right? Would you rather lose the ability to read or lose the ability to speak?
uh, well, yeah.
This is interesting because I feel like reading is so important in our society today, but so is speaking as well. Being
Yeah.
able to communicate. Um, that's hard actually.
Mm. I mean, if you would look at it in a realistic or maybe fundamental way, I mean, we we are more we are more in need of speech than reading, I think. But as well, like if you can't read, But I mean, you have people that's, for example, have dyslexia. They can't read, or at least
Y-
have.
Yeah, I mean, even then, dyslexia is one thing. I feel like I think the ability to not read is being completely illiterate.
Mm,
Isn't I believe Mike Tyson is illiterate,
mm,
and
yeah, perhaps.
he's quite well spoken actually. And then you
Mm.
have the complete opposite where people could be read, but they're maybe
I
mute
I
either by
do.
choice or by force of nature, I suppose.
Yeah, but I would, however, say that um, another thing that I do believe is that the more you read, the more I mean, since like you said, reading is such a important thing in our modern world. I know one person I don't remember his name, but he said that the smart people of our age will be those who read the most, and I do kind of agree with that statement, since um, I mean, not only like, since I mean you not only read like, when you read very, for example, philosophical books and works, you get a new perspective on life or different things, but you also acquire a more extensive vocabulary. So you really expand on your own mind, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that completely, but I also reckon that humans have survived for so long in without being illiterate, being not able to read
Mm,
for so many decades, millennia, whatever, right?
mm,
Until language was invented in Greece, I believe, and then or Mesopotamia, and then started branching out into other places. But even then, it's like some places went thousands of years without a reading system or without a script, and I think that those places are just survive by speaking, right? By being able to communicate.
mm,
However, in today's day and age, um, we are at that point now where every piece of information you ever get is not told to you, but rather is something that you read, right?
mm.
You never say into the thing usually, so you don't say someone told me. You usually say so I read somewhere, and then whatever you read, right?
Mm.
Because I feel like there's more credibility in saying that you read something than someone telling you something.
Yeah, true.
And
It,
I still think you can live a pretty functional life in modern society being mute compared to being illiterate.
mm. Yeah, because I think, um, and especially if we would consider, if everyone would be mute in, like, with our technology, modern technology, I mean, we would still be able to communicate with each other in some way. I think it's what I'm thinking of is that either we give up extensive knowledge, or we give up basic,
Communication.
yeah.
Well, not
So,
basic. I suppose it's the
or if,
most effective way of
yeah,
communication.
perhaps, because I mean, uh, I mean, speech in itself, that's only one way of communication. I mean, other animals have other ways of communication.
Yes, of
So,
course,
I
of
mean,
course.
of course, if not having to speak as an option, then I mean, we would
However,
still
you,
be
you
able to.
can you also can't discredit the effectiveness of speech. Speech is one of the most effective ways of
Mm.
communication compared to doing hand signs and all different kinds of stuff, right?
But
So,
wouldn't you also, sorry for cutting you off, but
oh, cool.
wouldn't you also agree that speech is also, I mean, it's a very powerful thing, like you say, but isn't it also one of the most provoking ways of communication?
Yeah, but I think the reason why it is so provoking is because how effective it is,
Mm,
right? But it also, I think, this is also where we start getting a little bit more philosophical and perhaps start looking into culture a bit more. I actually saw a map very, very recently, which stated that, uh, like in Europe, it was about Europe, right? And it had like a graph stating how loud or quiet people were based on decibels, right?
mm-hmm,
And generally speaking, in the Nordic countries where we reside at the moment,
mm,
um, we, uh, we were Sweden was considered very quiet,
mm,
roughly below 60 to 70 decibels, whilst in other countries it's up, like for example, towards southern Spain, Portugal, the Latin-speaking countries, right?
mm,
It's more loud, where language perhaps is a bigger part of their culture, and speech is, a much more present thing there than it is in Sweden.
mm.
So I think it also depends on what culture you're from, and perhaps what you grew up with and what you know now, being what's important, right?
Mm, yeah, true.
But in the end, I think I'm gonna have to say I will probably be mute rather than
Yeah,
illiterate.
I think so too. Because I mean, like I said before, I mean, if you would take into consideration, like, if we were able to still have access to our modern technology, I mean, there's still so many ways that, uh, I mean, you would get help with to be able to communicate in other ways. So I mean, being mute isn't the worst thing that can happen to you.
Yeah,
So I mean,
100%.
I would rather be able to actually read literary works and, for example, write about them,
Yeah,
which you can't do if you're illiterate. So
no,
you
of
know,
course, of course. However, if I was born 100 years ago, I probably would have changed my answer.
yeah, me too. Yeah, and that's also a thing. Like, it depends on when in time we would like discuss this. I mean, people back like in, I mean, even in 19, perhaps even all the
1980s,
way to,
1990s.
yeah, I mean, I mean, a lot of people in many parts of the world were majoritarily like they were still illiterate, but I mean, they don't have to, they don't have to read books because they, and then we could talk about like human development in the ways that uh basically how, because I remember this Swedish guy, this professor, he talked about how uh, the like the better your chances are for survival, the quicker you develop from only having like basic necessities, like we're talking food and water. And when you have that security, like you have food and water, you can
Mm.
then start talking about education, and you know it goes on and on. So it develops. That's how, well, basically, in a way, you can say human like language and such, and
Mm.
other consumer goods evolved, since we developed as a civilization to the point where we already had the basic necessities, and thus we could develop more luxurious goods, for example.
Yeah. Well, I think enough about that then. On to the next question. Would you rather be born again in a totally different life or born again with all the knowledge you have now?
Where would I be born if I would have the knowledge I have now? Just randomly,
Well, okay.
or the same
So
life?
no, no, you will be born. You'll be born again
Hmm.
in a. Well, it depends on an argument. I guess we can see both sides here. Well, the first question would be like if you would be born again in a completely different life or born
Hmm.
again. I
Hmm.
suppose in the same life you have now, but with all the knowledge you have now,
Hmm.
right?
Good question. Um, it's I mean, because like I sometimes I ponder about this, because you know, life itself is such a weird thing when you, like, I can, I mean, I myself can get a bit melancholic when I think about like uh the that basically we live now only to die in the future, and what happens afterwards, that's a total mystery. So, and the question is, are we given another life after death, or what is the actual purpose? Or are we, or is it just the basic theory that we come from the earth and we're gonna end up back to the earth, since we're basically a byproduct of atoms and like millions and billions of years of evolution? It's I don't know. It's a weird.
Yeah, I guess, and you can always bring up the simulation argument as well, which is
Uh,
quite interesting. Um, and here's my at least my problem with it, right? Is I feel like if I was born again in a different life. I feel like the not the only pro from it, but I think one of the biggest pros of being born in a different life again, or being born in a different life completely, would be that you experience new sensations, you experience um, new things, some things that you haven't dealt with before. Whilst if you were born again with all the knowledge you have now, it's you could probably diffuse situations and not make the same mistakes you've already made.
Mm. But that would be like, I mean, I do feel that I would rather be born somewhere else than be born again. Since I mean, what's the fun of um, going back and having to, well, relive the exact same life
However,
for,
I will counter argue that with the point of nostalgia, and
well, yeah.
I feel and I feel like everyone says this at this point, but I'm gonna say it one time and one time only, and that's that life was better when I was young, right?
Mm-hmm, mm,
Because I felt happier then. I think I was in a better state of mind because I was clueless to the world around me, right?
mm,
And
yeah, true.
I think the reason why why the happiness came from that nostalgia is because you're clueless to the world around you, and if you're clueless to the world around you, you don't have the knowledge that you would have normally. So I feel like I have to go with being born again in a totally different life where I don't know anything from the beginning, right?
Mm-hmm,
Yeah, because if I'm born as a baby and I know this and I know what's gonna happen in the next 18 years of my life, then what like I'm that's a dread for me.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and I can agree with that point since, like you said, when you were younger, when you were like 8 years old, for example, I mean, you, yeah, I don't know, it felt very different from what it does now. Like, for example, it felt like you had a lot more creativity, and that, like you said, you were oblivious to how the world works. That all was like fine and dandy, but no, but I wouldn't be reborn with the knowledge I have now to, like you said, so that you would you would be aware of what would happen in the next 18 years. Also, I kind of feel like it would defy all logic if isn't it like a bit like a time traveler in the way, like Back to the Future
I suppose so,
in a way.
but I think if you're smart with it, you can kind of get away. Because say for example, say you're born a baby and you know how to speak,
Mm-hmm.
but you choose to be mute for 2 years and then start very basic,
Mm,
and you kind of learn like a normal child, at least act as if you do, and just say mama, papa, and fucking, and then slowly starting to learn all the words, right? I,
mm,
I, Starting at that point would be, I think you can get away with that, and then once you're 9 or whatever, just start investing in Bitcoin,
yeah.
right? But
Mm,
again, I don't think I'm gonna feel the same happiness um, when I'm 8 as I will feel when I'm 8, knowing what's gonna happen, than what I did being 8, 10 years ago,
yeah,
right?
but actually now I'm now I'm kind of now I'm changing my mind. Now I'm contradicting myself here, but
Go on then.
because I've I think I chose like a bit too fast. Because imagine that you, since you are aware of what's gonna happen, uh, I mean, imagine like the that advantage to, like, for example, just uh I don't know, tell like tell your story or something. I don't know. And for, like you said, Bitcoin and stuff, like to invest in that before that gets wild. I mean, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of different benefits. So,
Yeah, but I think the issue with that be uh because you're gonna be miserable,
hmm
right? You're just gonna be miserable in whatever time because you know what's gonna happen next. It's almost like imposter syndrome, right?
mm,
Where you don't feel like you should be there because you know what's gonna happen at every time, at least in most important parts of time, right?
hmm
You right, and then it's like uh and especially in your own life as well, where you can recall major events.
hmm
I feel like it's just gonna end up fucking with you in the end
hmm
because you won't feel the same happiness you did when you were 8, 9, 10. Because I remember being a happy-go-lucky fucking 7-year-old, and I think the reason why I was so happy was because I didn't have knowledge, and I was so eager to learn. I was so eager to to grow big and grow strong and be like be like other people around me who were always the old elderly people, right?
hmm
And that was I think that was the only reason why I was happy as a child because by most not only but one of the biggest reasons is because you are so eager to learn. But if you already know everything and they start doing like, okay, what's 2 plus 2, you
hmm
know, you'll be like, they're like, obviously it's 4, but a child doesn't know that. They will treat you like a normal child up until a certain point.
hmm Yeah, it's now I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to think or choose for that matter. Yeah, it's a very complicated question. I mean, all philosophical questions are complicated questions. Um, you know what? I'm gonna do the most reliable thing and just go back to my first answer and stick to that.
Yeah, which was
I just be born like somewhere else,
yeah, that makes sense. That
or
makes
just like
sense.
randomly, just anything. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. I feel like it's
Like new
uh
experience. It's a start from scratch. You know. And of course, I mean, since that's kind of the thing, that's life. I mean, that's the reason why we live as well. That's to experience new things, to always be unaware of the future.
all right.
So, yeah.
Uh, Next question then.
hmm
Would you rather have a pause button in your life or a rewind button?
Oh,
Off from the go. I think I feel like the rewind button would kind of tell you like that you have some sort of regret in your life
hmm
that which you kind of want to redo. Whilst, for example, the pause button maybe is more lean towards living a very fast-paced life, right? Living a
hmm
life that goes past you very by, which it does. Like life is short. That's what I'm telling people,
hmm
and I don't think it's worth to procrastinate anything, but also because sometimes it's like I feel like what and this is perhaps my issue, but I feel like they are good for uh different parts of your life.
yeah, yeah. You kind of, and I agree with that. You kind of have to. Um, it depends on the situation. I mean, for example, if you did a really bad decision, like you invested money in a really bad um, company and then you just lost all the money, I mean, then you would definitely want to rewind button to be able to instead invest in something else and then like actually make money from it. But I mean, as well, that's the thing. Then you also get into the problem with like, I mean, another part of life, which is learning from your mistakes. And if you never learn from your mistakes, then what's the meaning of life? And
Yeah,
I guess the pause button would be more. I would be more inclined to have a pause button. I think. I guess.
I think the reason why I would want the pause button at least would be to slow down at least a little bit because
Mm,
we spend so much time sleeping, right?
yeah.
And I never feel like I get enough sleep, right?
Mm,
Because my sleep schedule is so regular. I don't know if about you, but sometimes I get 5 hours sleep, sometimes I get 10 hours. You know, it's so varied.
mm-hmm,
And I feel like if I could just like at I don't know, say 7 a.m. in the morning, just press pause and go to sleep for however long I wanted,
yeah.
and just wake up and it's still being 7 a.m.
Mm-hmm,
and being fully rested and being ready to go, you could get so much work done.
mm. Yeah, because I really agree with that because it always feels for me at least that I never have time to do all of the things I want to do in a normal school week, for example. It's impossible. I usually, I mean, and especially like with planning and stuff, and like you said, with like sleeping, for example. I mean, if I usually try to get 8 hours of sleep, but sometimes I obviously don't get that much. Sometimes I get 6, sometimes I get 7. And I mean, and even at 8 hours, I mean, I still feel like I want to like actually sleep for 10 hours since that is the, I mean, at least what I know from reading like different articles about how long teenagers should be sleeping. It's around 10 hours. Uh, and so, of course, having a pause button, of course, really helps out, since then you could be able to actually um, have the time to sleep, do all of the work, and then be able to have the rest of the time to like improve yourself even further in other aspects.
Uh, Perhaps playing devil's advocate here, but I think a rewind button as well would be amazing because I think pause. I think the pause button, you only stop a certain point in time,
Hmm.
and if you made a decision, you made it. But with a rewind button, you can try and try and try and try again.
Mm,
It's like pressing the restart button on a on a game, right?
hmm.
And with the rewind button, you can always change the outcome.
Mm,
Whilst with a pause button, you can never change the outcome,
hmm.
right?
Yeah, I think it's uh, the problem. Just it comes back to, I don't know. I'm maybe I'm just boring, or maybe I'm just like a I'm 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 thinking like I'm just following the principle of how I perceive life should work, since it's I basically I'm just thinking of the once again the argument that uh if you can just rewind all of your wrong decisions and always have right in everything, it's kind of a once again you are left, I mean, because that's the thing, I mean, when you are 100% complete, 100% successful, then you are only left empty-handed. uh that's kind of the thing, I guess. I don't know, it's hard because yeah, it's there's a lot of branches to start discussing when you talk
Yeah,
about this.
and again, there's so many variables
Yeah.
that are affecting this decision, and I don't know. Personally, I think I will probably go for pause button. I just think in most situations, it's gonna be uh, a better option
Hmm. Yeah.
than say a rewind button. But at the same time, rewind button also has its uses,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Anyway, next question then. Would you rather be able to see 10 minutes into your future or 10 minutes into the future of someone else?
uh I don't know. Like, I mean, hmm,
I feel like this question is a bit of it. I'm gonna change up the question a bit, right?
yeah.
Would you rather be able to see 10 minutes into your future, or travel 10 minutes back into the future?
Hmm, dumb. Um. Well, I mean, you mean that I would be able to travel into the future for 10 minutes?
No, no, no. You can see 10 minutes into the future. You know exactly what's gonna happen in the next 10 minutes.
Oh,
But you
yeah.
can. But the other option is you can travel back 10 minutes.
Oh, back 10 minutes. Okay. Um. Then we're talking a bit about the rewind button again. Uh. Well.
Yeah. However,
Hmm,
it is up against a different opponent here though,
hmm,
which is being able to see into the future.
yeah. I think that you should not be able to um see into the future because again it spoils um the way that we evolve as individuals.
Mm.
But I would also say that being able to see into the future could have major benefits also for you, since for example perhaps there is a accident or of some kind that could perhaps be life threatening, and then I mean definitely you would be able to want to see into the future.
Right.
I mean, at least for my sake. So I mean, I would. Oh God, yeah, that's a really tough one. Uh, I would see into the future. Yeah, I would.
Yeah. I think yeah, I agree with you. It's very tough, and I think they both have the pros and cons. I think the good thing about being able to see into the future is avoiding stuff and knowing what's gonna happen.
Hmm.
Uh, However, I feel like in this situation, it's quite different because compared to a pause button, I only know what's gonna happen. You know,
Mm,
I can't really give myself more time to prepare. I can't really do anything about it, right?
mm,
So I think in this situation, I'm gonna have to disagree with you. I think I'm gonna have to be able to travel back 10 minutes because imagine how useful that would be. Say for example, you break your leg or whatever, right? For falling down the stairs. If I travel back 10 minutes, um, I can take it like I can instead of running down the stairs, I can just walk down slowly,
mm,
if that makes sense, right?
mm.
So I think personally, I would rather have the ability to travel back 10 minutes in time.
Of course, being able to travel back or see forward in time makes you blind to the present. I guess that's what I'm trying to get at, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And you can't really. I guess you also fail to live in the moment.
Hmm.
You know.
So, I mean, uh, I think that maybe I'm just very humble, but I mean, perhaps I wouldn't even pick neither of them.
Yeah.
But of course, if I had to, I would probably pick seeing into the future.
Right.
But I
Right.
mean, it's kind of the same thing going back 10 minutes and seeing forward 10 minutes because it's either you are aware of the future or you can change the future by changing the past.
Right.
it's a
That
it's
makes
a
sense.
it's a or I mean then again, you aren't able to go back 10 minutes if you're dead, for example. So
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
I get. I guess that makes sense, right? But
Or could you? Who knows?
yeah, maybe in the future, God knows what Elon Musk has planned for us, right?
Yep.
Anyway. I guess next one, and perhaps a bit of viewer discretion.
Mm-hmm.
This next one is going to be a little bit more pessimistic. It's going to be a little bit more gloomy, if you will. Um, Defeatist, perhaps. And that's would you rather die of sadness or die of guilt?
Oh. Um.
Now, this is interesting.
But I mean, hmm, good question. Um. Uh. Well, I do not want to. I do not want to die sad.
But would you
Uh.
die? But would you want to die filled with guilt?
uh but isn't sadness in a way a consequence of guilt?
I think you can. I think you can. Uh, I think you can differentiate the two, right? I think guilt is more that it plagues your mind.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you're specifically sad about it. I just think that you feel bad towards it.
Well,
You
I
don't
mean,
specifically.
yeah, that's true. I mean, when I mean, people who die, I mean, they aren't exactly happy with themselves. I mean,
Yeah,
some aren't. I mean, there's obviously some people that when they are aware that, oh, I am going to die, I mean, it's not like it's a fantastic sensation you're feeling.
yeah,
And of course, feeling guilty about something, of course, I mean, you don't want to die feeling that, oh, I did this very well bad thing before I died, and I can't do anything to change it.
yeah,
So of course,
yeah. Let me ask you this: do you have a guilty conscience?
I'm sorry.
Do you have a guilty conscience?
Mm, yeah, I think
Yeah,
I think I have a pretty guilty conscience.
yeah.
Uh,
I don't know. I feel like dying sad would be a lot more humane than dying with a guilty
cause
conscience.
cause I mean, if you die feeling guilty, I mean it's a I mean, it's kind of. I mean, guilt. I mean, I know the feeling of guilt. It's like it's a very like for me at least. It's a very aching. Like your heart's aching. Like it's very painful. Some.
Right.
I mean, you can feel like very painful. So I mean, of course. I mean, I think yeah, like you said, that sadness would be more humane than like feeling guilt.
Yeah. Another thing is sadness you can't control,
Mm-hmm.
right? But guilt you can. That's the
Mm,
difference. Guilt you can actually control because uh, having a guilty conscience depends on your actions,
mm,
but being sad depends on other people's actions.
yeah. Yeah, that's true. And I guess that was why I said in the first place that I would die feeling guilt, because I mean, of course, you could do something like early on in your life that you feel very guilty for, doing something very horrible, and then having that guilt with you, but you suppress it that much that up until like the end of your life, you won't even remember it because you've suppressed the guilty feeling that much. But I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, I think personally, I think I would rather die sad than I would to die guilty.
Hmm.
Because I think guilty is just a so much worse feeling.
Mm,
Because guilt in itself causes you to doubt yourself,
mm,
while sadness causes you to doubt the world around you.
hmm. I don't know why. It's so weird. Uh, because you know I want to go out like we're we're talking like very morbid on a very morbid topic here. But if when I actually go out, I want to go out like one of the Roman emperors when he said, "Did I play the part well? Then applaud as I exit." Like I want to do something like that. You know?
In a blaze of glory is how you want to
Yeah,
go out.
exactly.
Yeah,
Having a last rememberable phrase, you know.
yeah, of course, of course. I personally, I'm gonna go with dying of sadness. I think uh, having a guilty conscience is a little bit too much. I think it affects you, and uh, I think people would rather be. I think people would be more understanding to die of sadness than to die of guilt in general.
Hmm. Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah, it's
What about what about you then?
yeah. I mean, like you, I would probably die of sadness instead of guilt.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Probably.
next question then. Next question then. Would you
Hmm.
rather be extremely talented in one specific thing, or be a jack of all trades?
Um, because I I do. I mean, my grandparents, for example, they know little about a lot. They have a very
They
general
they are jack.
understanding of a
Yeah,
lot of, yeah,
they are
jack
jack of all trades.
jack of all trades, definitely. And of course, that trait is pretty admirable, I think. But of course, being talented in one specific thing, I mean, there's
Let
so
let
many.
me let me differentiate it. All right.
Mm,
I think let's make a very clear distinction here. I think being extremely talented in one thing means you're, if not the best, you're one of the best in the world at this thing, right? However, uh, the other one being alright at all things doesn't mean that you are great. It just means you have very basic understanding of everything around you. That is a jack of all trades, at least to me, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah. Um. I I don't know, cause when you are very talented in one specific thing, you can also profit depending on depending on what you are very talented at. But I mean, yeah, it's a good question, and I mean, it perhaps could be a talent in itself to be able to have a lot of knowledge about, or well, I mean, yeah, being a jack of all trades as well.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
think personally I would rather be a jack of all trades. Reason being that I feel like I just do so much stuff and I have so many interests uh, that I like being, you know, at least on a very basic level, having some skill in all things than having a lot of skill in one specific thing. You're right there.
Yeah, I was just yeah, but I do agree with you. Um, I'm not quite sure. Cause I've myself I don't know really what I see myself as. If I see myself as a jack of all trades or as a talented person in one thing, there is
Yeah, a
a special.
specialist, we may call it.
Yeah, exactly. Because in a way, I mean, I have yeah, I would probably be a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
I think
All right.
probably suits me the best.
Yeah, I guess because specific specialist also has its own uh things, right? I think it also is very telling to your personality. I think if you're all over the place and you like a lot of stuff, um, I think Jack of all trades is a lot more suited for you. But if you're really into one thing and one thing only, I think being a specialist is a lot more suited towards you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
true.
yeah.
Hmm.
I know. Oh well. Oh well. Oh well.
Oh well, oh well. That's how life is.
Yes. Should we go for one final one then?
Uh, I do not think we have time for
Oh,
it,
we
but
don't.
no, unfortunately
Oh,
not.
that's so sad.
Yes, very sad.
Well, well, well.
But we have discussed a lot of interesting things today.
Yeah.
And of
And
course,
we will definitely do one of these again sometime in the future.
yeah, because there were a lot of questions.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions, and you know
And
we've only
there's a
got
lot of answers.
there's a lot of answers indeed.
Yeah,
Uh, and please, anyone down in the comments, feel free to leave your reasoning down below. Would you rather rewind time or be able to stop it, or would you rather be a specialist in something than being a jack of all trades? Leave a comment down below. We're open to discussion, and please do check out the charity down in the description,
yes.
helping women around the around Sweden. But yeah, besides that, please do like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good old fancy stuff. Click the bell, and yeah, goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. That's it.